Good morning. Hopefully you can settle down. We're about to start. My name is Mehul Chaudhary, and I'm a proud member of the class of 2021, celebrating my first reunion. It was an honor for me to be asked to introduce this session, as Columbia Business School has meant a lot for me personally and professionally. I would say a little bit of backstory. 5 years before joining Columbia, I came to New York from India as a transfer within my organization. And during these 5 years, I found it incredibly difficult to make friends at the workplace. So in 2019, when I decided to go to Columbia, my specific objective was to build community in New York. And while I was at school, my engagement with the CBS community exceeded every expectation I ever had. And I'm grateful to get out of school with a set of very close friends. Shout out to Cluster C21, and I assume none of them are here. Given my focus on community, I did not think that I would gain that much from academics. I was clearly proved wrong. Professor Vesbes is here, who taught us BA in the core. And in general, I thought that the quality of education and instruction was outstanding during my entire 2 years. And that inspired me to stay engaged with the school. And clearly, I'm coming back during reunion weekend to attend some classes as well. The last thing I would say is that I got the opportunity through Columbia to engage in some significant personal development activities. And the list is very long, but the one thing that was one of the most impactful experiences for me was to be a peer advisor for Cluster B22. And with that, I would love to introduce one of the shining stars of B22, Lacie Pierre, who will be in conversation with our Dean, Costis Maglaras.
Well, thank you for a wonderful introduction, for being a wonderful PA. I just want to also acknowledge, because he was such a wonderful peer advisor, he also inspired me to do it, and that's one of the amazing experiences that I've been able to have at CBS. With that, I want to say welcome to everyone to this session. We're very excited to have a State of the School Fireside chat with Dean Maglaras, and able to do it in this beautiful space. So we'll spend some time talking about several topics, from Manhattanville, student and alumni experience, just beautiful things around our business, community, thought leadership, and some other topics. So with that, I would love for us to start, Dean, on this beautiful physical space. And I think several of you have had the opportunity, or will have the opportunity, to tour Manhattanville. And I just want to give the Dean a round of applause for being able to open it and being able to do that. And awesome opportunity to be able to take classes here in this space. So with that being said, Dean, would love for you to be able to speak to the significance of our physical transition and the impact of the built environment. And why was it so important, and how does this intersect with your vision for the future of CBS and inform how we engage with the local community?
Okay, well, thank you all for coming. And all of you have been spent time in Uris Hall and in Warren Hall, so I think all of you understand why we needed to actually change our physical plan. And so this was a very ambitious project, a very important project for the school to undertake, which it took time, like everything that needs to take place in the beautiful and thriving city of New York. But the result is phenomenal. And we have a modern and open, lit architecture that is sort of inspires a different type of work. When you walk around, if you haven't toured it, you will understand there is so much space to come together, to collaborate, to innovate, to hang out, to network, unlike, let's say, our previous life in the main campus. In addition, it's a place where we can bring other people here, both from the community, and we'll talk about it more in a bit, but also to connect to the other schools of the university. And from the Mind-Brain Behavior Institute that is right through that wall, the Art Center, our future climate school that is going to be right there, the engineering building that is going to be right behind Geffen Hall, which is where we're sitting right now. So this is an incredible time for us and an incredible physical plant for us to reimagine education and reimagine our future for the world. And you asked the question about vision.
Yeah.
And so, what we have right now, we have, Columbia Business School has incredible strengths. We probably have the best business school campus, bar none, in the world right now. We're part of an incredible institution that has strengths in all disciplines, from engineering to health sciences to climate to law to the arts, to humanities, psychology. Like, we can sort of connect with all disciplines simply because everything is done at an extremely high level here at the university. And we're in the sort of the most diverse, dynamic, entrepreneurial business capital of the world. So with all of that in our back pocket, the question is, what is our vision? Taking for granted that we're starting from that sort of amazing situation. And I think our vision is to provide the most modern, disruptive, entrepreneurial education to our students and to our alumni, and to then push ourselves, our faculty, to really work on thought leadership in problems that have true impact in the practice of business and in our societies, and then to nurture an incredible connected alumni community, which is all of you. The question is, how do we do it?
Yeah.
Right? And for those of you that have been listening or collaborating with us, we're clearly doubling down in areas that we have incredible strength: value investing, private equity, media, healthcare. I'm sure I'm forgetting a bunch of stuff, but we're working on everything that we have, all the retailing, established presence to sort of grow these programs. Secondly, we're investing a lot of time truly in areas that we think they're sort of disrupting society and disrupting the practice of business, from the digital transformation and digital future, entrepreneurship, future of finance, that I think is part of the DNA of the school, but is also part of the future of the world as an enabler. Climate change, which we'll talk more because that's your passion. And business and society is another area that I think we're investing quite a bit. So areas where the practice of business is in flux, and areas where a lot of action is happening in the world. So that's areas that we're sort of significantly investing time. We're doing a lot in the area of diversity. This is something that I feel proud about, because this is something I started 3 years ago. The minute I became dean, we created the vice dean position for this area to sort of drive our agenda forward. We clearly have a lot to do ahead of us, but we're working both to bring a more diverse set of people in our student body, our faculty, and our staff, also to create a more inclusive environment, and to affect essentially how business think about that through our thought leadership. We're working on making education affordable by moderating costs, and obviously by focusing on financial aid to support our students. I'll give you a factoid that people don't know, and that is that in real terms, tuition right now, and certainly tuition right now is 5% lower than it was 2 years ago in real terms. And starting in September, it will probably be 7 or 8% lower than it was in 2019 in real terms, okay? So that's and our costs are not 9% lower, right? Mm-hmm. So we're certainly focusing on that to make education more affordable and approachable. And then the other thing that I'm doing, and I'm trying to do quite a bit, is to truly strengthen our ties with the other schools in the university. And in areas that we can provide leverage to them, but in also areas that we can extract leverage from them. And there are examples like this past fall. We started a class where we put medical school students together with MBA students, and the work on projects. And we found sort of an infinite supply of projects just 40 blocks north of here in our Columbia University medical campus. So we're leveraging them to do that. This coming fall, I'll co-teach with our Dean of the School of Engineering a new elective that we call Breakthrough Technologies, where we're going to bring sort of superstar professors from engineering, and together with us, we'll explore how these technologies, what are these technologies, how they're affecting innovation, where have they been applied successfully, what can they, what's the future 3, 5, 10 years into it. So in some sense, collaborative work in that space. We're doing quite a bit with climate. Many of you know we do quite a bit with SEPA, with law, et cetera. So, collaborative work with the university, focusing on our strengths, and investing in what I think are the areas that are really disrupting everything that is going on. So that's sort of a long-winded response to what you were saying. Now, the last bit of your question was about community.
Yes. So how do you see us with this new physical space and all these connections that we're looking to deepen? How do we partner and positively impact the community?
Good. That's great. So we happen to be fortunate to be part of this sort of probably the most dynamic and diverse and entrepreneurial part of Manhattan. And we're looking for ways. We have established ways of connecting with the community through the small business development group, which is housed right up there. That has helped thousands of companies and has created thousands of jobs over the years, and we're going to continue to sort of amplify that work. We're trying to we have sort of obviously collaborations with local vendors and local businesses, primarily at the entire campus, but the business school is sort of the most involved investor in that area. We're pursuing now initiatives to do coding boot camps, for example, for students, for kids in middle school and high school, things that we do in our classrooms, things that we have actually launched through the Tamer Center in our REAP program, and now we're trying to do things with the local community. We're going to try to have connections in the arts to bring sort of local artists inside our buildings. So we're sort of expanding in meaningful ways areas where we're going to try to have a fruitful interaction with the community. And the community can also make use of these facilities as well. We just started, as you probably know, as of a month ago, we couldn't have a meeting like that. Until mid-March, we would all have been wearing masks if we were in this room. So, things are moving in that direction. But this is both a priority for us and I believe an opportunity for us.
Yes, I agree. And would love to transition from how we can connect our physical built environment to something that CBS is known for, and that's our world-renowned and differentiated curriculum and faculty. So would you be able to speak or share with us how you've seen courses change over time in the past few years and how our curriculum is evolving and will continue to evolve as we've made this transition?
Good. So I was one of these individuals that actually did quite a bit of work to change our curriculum 5 or 6 years ago, and now I'm paying the price for that. But I'll give you a factoid. About right now, our core is essentially the first semester when you come in. It's first semester and a little bit. And the other 3 semesters are elective courses that people take. Of these elective courses, about 25% of them that people take, didn't exist 5 or 6 years ago. These are all new courses. These are courses that focus on technology, analytics, AI, and the applications thereof in different areas, digital product management, climate-related courses that we're introducing in this interface of business and society, courses in management and leadership about how to manage and lead in sort of cross-functional team environments. So in some sense, the curriculum is accelerating, it's changing in an accelerated pace. To make that even faster, we created a process where we truly are supporting financially with arrays and other resources, faculty to quickly change and introduce new courses. This is something that we started this year. The last 2 years, faculty were changing their courses first to make them online, then to make them hybrid, then to bring them back to the classroom. And now we're asking them to just make new courses for all of us. And the first few of these are going to sort of hit our classrooms in the fall, okay? So we're sort of trying to push for an accelerated pace. We're exploring these sort of cross-disciplinary courses that happen across school boundaries. I mentioned one, the medical school, one, some of the engineering. We have many there. We're trying to build things with a newly formed climate school. So these are opportunities that we're going to invest quite a bit. An idea that we have that we're going to sort of try to launch in the post-COVID world. Many of you may have sampled Chazen trips. Unfortunately, our students currently haven't really done it because we have been sort of grounded for the last couple of years. We just started 3-4 weeks ago, and we're going to sort of expand after that. So Chazen trips take groups of people with a faculty mentor together, and they go to sort of different geographies, and they study the economy, they meet local businesses and politicians, and they try to get exposure to that. So we're borrowing that idea, and we're going to introduce similar trips or immersions into sort of industries. So imagine that we want to learn about the semiconductor industry. We're going to try to understand something about the technology, something about how chips are made. We're going to try to understand something about the supply chains. We're going to talk a little bit about the politics of semiconductors, and we're going to learn about that industry. We may want to do the same thing in clean tech. We may want to do the same thing in electric vehicles. We may want to do things in areas where we think there is student interest and significant activity, both in this country and elsewhere. So we're sort of trying to innovate both inside the classroom and outside the classroom, and as needed, bring other people in our classes to enrich the experience. So a lot is happening.
Yes.
And a lot is changing. And as you know, many of you also come to our classrooms, and hopefully you'll continue to do so, because that's crucially important for our students to bring sort of both to see role models. Omar and I are on the faculty, but we're not role models for our students. Our students don't want to become professors. Certainly they don't want to become the dean, okay? But our students want to become business leaders and entrepreneurs and disruptors, and in some sense bringing these voices into the classroom is crucially important.
And just on that topic, I think you mentioned alumni, and alumni definitely make our CBS experience unique. What do you think makes our alumni so unique and special?
Well, New York and our university self-selects for a particular type of person when they come in to become students, and I think that person, that personality stays, and it's dynamic, it's entrepreneurial, hustling, appreciates the energy that we have here in the beautiful city of New York, and in some sense that's I would say the signature of our alumni community. And we want to continue to nurture that community, to connect to you as strongly as we can. I want to mention one thing about the vision that I forgot, and it's a plug for some of you. In addition to providing incredibly up-to-date and sort of forward-looking education to our students, we want to do exactly the same thing for our alumni.
Okay.
And about a year and a half ago, or 2 years ago, we launched, actually in the middle of the pandemic or in the start of the pandemic, a lifelong learning platform for all of our alums. We call it Alumni Edge. If you don't know it, you should learn about it. And we're going to be sort of populating it with new classes. The same classes that we teach in our classrooms, we're going to be making them available online and then sort of provide them to all of our alums. So that you can think of it either as refreshers or as getting some exposure to new ideas or as reskilling, kind of like for those of you that graduated, let's say before, when did we do the business analytics reform? About 10 years ago now. So if you graduated more than 10 years ago, you didn't take this incredible new core class that we have in business analytics. Now it's available, let's say, on that platform. And this is just one example of 10 or 15 other courses that we have. And every semester or every year, we're going to be sort of feeding new courses as we develop them into that platform. So that's, I think, another way to connect with our alums.
Definitely, and I'll be taking advantage and hope everyone here does as well. So we know that CBS is at the very center of business. As such, we need to talk about some things that are business related, and especially as it pertains to our 5 key transformative areas. And those have been identified as digital future, entrepreneurship and innovation, 21st century finance, intersection of business and society, climate and sustainability. I'll select a few, but feel free to speak to others as they make sense. But want to really start with digital future. What are key ways in which technology has influenced business, and what areas should we be watching for in the future? And just connecting that back to what we're seeing real time at CBS.
How much time do we have? So how many people are here from New Jersey, the beautiful state of New Jersey? Good. So the digital revolution started in the 1940s in New Jersey with 2 inventions. First, the invention of the semiconductor. Second, and 2 years later, with somebody that developed the theory for digital communication using zeros and ones. These 2 inventions, if you think about it, and you fast forward into the future, have really transformed everything in our lives. All products, from how we work, computers, the types of things that we can do, how we communicate with others, how we produce stuff, how do we ship them, how do we, everything has been transformed through this wave of technology, and every industry has been disrupted in the process. And we're still early in that wave of disruption. So I think what we need to do in that space is truly redefine, first of all, business education, but really double down in our thought leadership. So we're doing a fair amount in that space. You just heard a talk exactly on that topic from Omar. But we're sort of focusing on the digital future. We're launching an ambitious initiative that I'll be announcing in a few weeks on that very area. We're sort of funding a lot of curriculum work so that we accelerate curriculum development in that space. This is something that I was mentioning a few minutes ago. And we're launching what I call applied thought leadership work stream. So in some sense, work where we bring under a big tent. This is my analogy for I want to bring here talent from engineering, from law, as needed, to tackle big questions in the area of digital transformation, broadly defined. So we're going to have a sleeve or a lab that is going to work on digital finance and blockchains and crypto. We're going to have one on algorithmic decision-making, platform economies, digital supply chains, AI, the future of work, algorithmic bias, things that we think and talk about, and sort of engage in these sort of pressing questions and take ideas both to practice, but also bring them to our classrooms. So that's a huge area of emphasis for us, and I believe a huge driver of change in the world. Now, I'll I'll mention something about entrepreneurship, and then I'm gonna go back to something that you're passionate about, Lacie. But over the last 10 years, I'll give you a factoid, 3 factoids. Over the last 10 years, our students and alums have started more than 700 businesses that are venture-backed. Over the last decade or so, they have raised $23 billion of institutional equity. We have 20 unicorns that came out of that, 120 some exits. Entrepreneurship runs in the veins of our students.
Yes.
We need to do more on that front. As successful as our entrepreneurs are, I'm going to say something that sounds a little bit negative, but you'll understand what I mean. We're not the world's best inventors here at the business school. We are the most commercially minded, but not necessarily the world's best inventors or the university's best inventors. But the university's best inventors may be literally in the building next door. So we need to create ways to bring our incredible talent, our human capital, which is our students and alums, in contact with the incredible inventions that are happening in the medical school campus, in engineering, the climate school, etc., and help these people explore and potentially commercialize and bring to market their ideas. So we're trying to do a fair amount in that space, from curriculum to helping and supporting our entrepreneurs, creating a network for our entrepreneurial-minded students and alums, but also connect ourselves and put the business school in the nexus of entrepreneurship for the entire university.
Yeah.
Now, if you ask me, so I believe technology, as I was mentioning earlier, emanating from the beautiful state of New Jersey, but then moved to California. And the funny thing is, why did it move to California? Well, the 3 co-inventors of the semiconductor didn't get along together. So one of them packed up and went to California and started Shockley Labs there. From that is Fairchild, and from that Intel, and then the rest is history. Okay, but it could have been right by the Bell Labs had they got along a little bit better back then. But so this started in the 40s, late 40s, and it's still rippling through our lives. If we ask ourselves, what's going to be the driver of sort of complete disruption over the next century, the century that is starting today? I believe it's going to be our collective response to the climate change challenge. It's going to change our energy market. It's going to change transportation. It's going to change manufacturing, supply chains, how we build stuff, what we eat, where it comes from. And in some sense, we need to invest quite a bit in that. Now, why don't I pivot to you? Because that's what you're working on, right? So why don't you tell us a little bit about why did you come to Columbia and what is it that you do here?
Totally. So thanks so much for the opportunity to speak a bit about myself. I came to Columbia with a background in environmental engineering and spent 5 years at Accenture doing supply chain operations and sustainability strategy. And when looking to enter business school, Columbia, of course, was top of mind, just given our focus on things such as climate. We have amazing professors such as Bruce Usher, who really speak about the intersection of business and finance, Tamer Center. We have really amazing things happening there, and I'm also a 3 Cairns Climate Fellow and had the opportunity to do consulting work for a climate-based fund, and also doing VC and climate VC as well. So Columbia is definitely an ecosystem, the business school, where you can have those intersections. And as you mentioned, we have top institutions just across the Columbia ecosystem. So I'm also able to engage with the policy sector as well, as I'm a dual degree there.
So Lacie is doing a dual degree between the business school and SIPA. Our school of SIPA has tremendous strength in this area of environment.
Yeah.
CGEP is an incredible center for energy policy, for example. And sort of this ability to interface the two is
Exactly.
Is that what you want to do in the future?
Yeah, so last summer I spent my time at Morgan Stanley doing energy investment banking and really got to see firsthand how policy and what's happening in the energy space impacts transactions and deals. So got to work on energy transition related deals. And I think definitely would love to continue my career and focus and be able to deliver positive finance for sustainable projects and one day lead the World Bank perhaps in this capacity.
Good. We wish you good luck.
Thank you. And I guess on that end, I know we're wrapping up on time, and we want to leave time for the audience to ask questions. I want to end our conversation looking forward. What does a leader for the next generation of business need to know, embody, and practice? How would you describe that individual? And what do you think is the unique differentiator that CBS is able to provide to allow us to go out and be leaders in the world?
Good. So I think I'll give you a two-part response to that. But in some sense, I believe we need to be continuous learners in order to actually become leaders. In some sense, what we plan to do here at the school is provide excellent education for people to be able to launch in incredible professional journeys when they leave. And in addition to that, provide all of this sort of training in interpersonal management leadership skills that will end up becoming crucially important later on. But I do think the world is changing so quickly that people need to be continuously reinvesting and being curious in what's changing. So I think that's a property of future leaders. I think the second thing that I believe is crucial is thinking about how business can be a positive agent of change in our societies. I mean, businesses have created tremendous economic value, tremendous opportunity over very long periods of time. And I do think they're now playing an increasing positive role on societies and thinking about how can they serve their communities, how can they serve people. And I think creating and nurturing socially responsible leaders is important. And before we run into audience questions, I'll give you an interesting thing that we're doing. We have a little bit more space than we need right now. That's a problem, of course. That's an opportunity for us. We used to be utilizing every square inch of space in Uris Hall until very recently. And with a little bit of that extra space at the sort of corner on the 11th floor of Kravis, we have created like a little think tank. We don't have a name yet. We call it the Hub. But this area is a place where we're going to try to bring academics, not just from the business school, but from elsewhere, business leaders, policymakers, come together and really debate and work on areas that we think are crucial to the future of business education and to the future of business practice. Our first topic that we're incubating for the next 24 months is this area of business and society. We're creating new curriculum. We already have some incredible courses in that space. Glenn Hubbard, previous dean, introduced a new course on business and society this very semester, the second half this semester, bringing business leaders to talk about how they're thinking about some of these questions. Omar is participating in that course as well. And so, but also thinking about thought leadership, sort of debating and trying to come up with an intellectual framework for how business leaders need to be thinking about these questions. So that's an area that I think we're investing quite a bit.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We will open it to the audience. We have some individuals with microphones, and we will call on our individuals from here.
You want me to start calling?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. Oh. Okay.
Regarding human resource management and where the business school is going in that particular space. What's happened with COVID? I think a healthcare system, it's always, the question that came up, burnout. It wasn't new. It was always there.
Yeah.
But leaders struggle with that. And how is the business school handling human resource management within the curriculum?
Was everyone able to hear the question? Oh, no?
So let me just repeat.
Yeah.
I mean, the question is thinking about human resources, thinking about what happened during the pandemic, thinking about the future. How do we grapple with questions of human resource management here, both in the curriculum and I would say also at the school, because we have the same issues as well. So first of all, we're introducing courses. We did introduce some courses. In fact, I believe last semester, Stefan Meyer introduced a course on that very topic, future of work, thinking a little bit about exactly that issue. How should people come together? What type of flexibility should we have in our work schedules? How can we put together a strategy so that the organizations are innovative, efficient, they continue to do their work, but actually best serve also their employees. So that's an area that, so we're working on, we have this curriculum, we're having some research projects that we have funded on that very topic to think exactly about that. And I have to say, we're experimenting ourselves. We have hundreds of people that work at the business school, and we are now in that phase of like trying to figure out what's the new normal. How should we organize work? What type of flexibility can we afford to have? How do we bring people together periodically to make sure, that sort of the spirit, the culture of the school, the mentorship and apprenticeship that happens in our environment continue and will continue to thrive while sort of offering flexibility on the boundaries. I don't think we have solved that problem for us, and I don't think we have solved that problem in other organizations right now. And I think it's going to take a little bit of time for us to sort of settle not only in our routines, but also settle into what works and what doesn't. But I do believe that in many areas we learned that we can be quite efficient and effective working in a slightly different way. So I don't think that's going to go away. This is something that is going to stay with us. To what extent we're all navigating that boundary. So curriculum, research, and daily experimentation with our teams to think about how to do that. Yes?
Thank you, Dean Maglaras. Thank you, Lacie. What is Columbia Business School doing or planning to increase or improve mentorship of alumni entrepreneurs? And what's our role as alumni? Is there, how do we engage as potential mentors? And do you have an ask for us today or something to share about how we can engage as mentors?
Good. So we've been discussing and we're trying to, we do a lot in entrepreneurship, and I rattled some numbers about companies, et cetera, but the reality is there's still more to be done apart from the connecting to other schools. One specific thing we're trying to do is to nurture a network of people that sort of live in that space, from students to alums to angel investors to people that have been involved in startups in the past, that can be mentors to companies or to sort of fledgling entrepreneurs. In the Y Combinator sort of model or something of that sort. So we're working on putting this thing together, and people that want to be part of that should certainly, we will certainly reach out to try to actually make that sort of a broad community. Oftentimes, we do so much better than the rest of the university, but even within the business school, oftentimes people have to reinvent the wheel or find solutions to exactly the same question that dozens of people have actually answered in a difficult way, or months before them, or weeks before them, or years before them. And in some sense, we need to sort of facilitate that process. The other thing that we're doing is we're trying to increase, we have a fund, the so-called Lung, in the Lung Center, that makes small investments into a selection of startup ideas that are coming primarily from our students. We want to expand that. So that to make that a little bit more broadly available, that's one thing. And then also create a network of angel and venture investors that are on the sidelines, so that in some sense we can give access to capital to our students and alumni entrepreneurs by having that network available to them. So, we're working on these ideas, and everyone interested to be part of that, we certainly want you to be part of that. Yeah, Arnie.
Could you give us an idea of the KPIs, the metrics that we have, the endowment, as it pertains to our peer schools?
And so the question is about endowment and how does this relate or connect to our peers. I don't have a precise number for our endowment right now. It's probably a little bit north of $1 billion for the business school. As always, this bifurcates between there are a couple of schools that operate in a different level, Harvard being one, Stanford, and then I think we are closer to MIT, Kellogg, etc. Chicago Booth is doing better than us because it got a transformative gift from Booth about 10 years ago. And Wharton, I think, also is stronger than us in its endowment, but that's driven by the undergraduate program as well. But we certainly need to grow our endowment, and we certainly need, in some sense, to invest or to sort of raise funds in specific areas that are strategically important. I mentioned financial aid, but also resources to fund these incredible initiatives that we're trying to do: digital future, climate change, and more resources for entrepreneurship that we were just talking about. So in some ways, so that we can accelerate change. But all in, we do well. We also did sufficiently well financially, even during the pandemic. We certainly did incredibly well, despite what some of our students may be saying. Jeff is there because he and I were butting heads during the pandemic. But we came together during the pandemic more so and better than any of our peer schools to provide in-person education last year, where most of our peers did not do any of that. So in some sense, we're in a good place. More is better, but Columbia Business School is financially robust due to your support, and we need to continue on that journey.
I have a question to the left.
Yes.
I was struck yesterday by the mention of stakeholder capitalism, and you alluded to it today. And it seems to me, whether we're talking about Amazon, policy at New York Times, we're talking about Starbucks, a lot of CEOs and leaders are falling flat-footed, in part because of failure to deal with digital transformation and Twitter and how to be responsive to these things, both from a tactical and policy standpoint. I assume maybe at that think tank or incubator you're working on this, but could you just speak to that issue? Because it seems to be a big elephant in the room alongside whatever policy people are developing around what issues to care about. It's as complicated in terms of how to approach them.
Yeah. We're all typically and often fall flat-footed on that one. So I think the expectations and the demands for CEOs and leaders have actually changed too. And in some sense, they're asked to engage in questions that have to do with society, with politics, and issues that typically used to fall squarely outside of their purview and their strategic mission. So that's some of the issues that actually are being discussed in these classes that we're introducing. David Salomon from Goldman Sachs is coming to class, in Glenn's class in a week or two, to talk about social justice and how what was happening at Goldman Sachs over the last 2 years. James Gorman came to class, and he was interviewed by Ken Daniel, who's a colleague in finance, and they were talking about financial services and access and things that financial service providers and banks think about. So we're trying to learn more, and we're trying to be able to sort of to best prepare leaders for that dialogue. Having said that, and I think the other thing that is important is to simultaneously work on the intellectual framework that leaders, business leaders, executives can either rely on or think about. Right now, oftentimes we say this is an inspired leader and look at what they're doing. And this is fantastic, but we don't want to rely on leaders to be inspired to do the right thing. We want to have an intellectual framework that supports leaders to do what we think is the right thing, and to the extent that this may be a little bit different than what we've been doing in the last 50 years, is like in what particular way, and how should they be setting strategic imperatives in their own organizations to achieve that. So we're working on all of these things, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Over the last few years, expectations on business leaders have dramatically changed to respond.
We have time for 2 more questions, and I believe the mics are out, so we'll leave it there.
Hi, thank you. My question is easy on classes. Will alums be able to continue audit virtually after COVID? So I was fortunate enough to audit some classes during COVID virtually, and I know we can audit for life if you were based in New York. So wondering, I'm asking on behalf of everybody coming from everywhere else. Thanks.
Okay, that's a good question, putting me on the spot. I don't have an answer to that one. Let's just say that. But let me just tell you what was happening during COVID and what we're thinking. First of all, during COVID, we did open up a little bit for people to sort of be able to zoom in, but faculty would still put boundaries on how many individuals can actually do that. Because if I'm doing a case discussion class, I don't want an additional 100 faces necessarily, but maybe I can afford to have 10 more individuals. So that's what we're thinking. What we're trying to grapple with is whether we can create a little bit of that for most or all of our classes. The second thing that is worth saying is that all of our classes at this point in time have the capability technologically in this building and also in the past buildings to be able to be hybrid. So every time we teach a class, we do have the technological capability to allow for some people to be participating or auditing remotely, even though sort of everyone else is in the classroom. So technologically we can do it. We need to think about how much of that slack are we willing to tolerate. The last bit is, in addition to being able to come into the classroom when there was available classroom space that all alums have the right to do, our intent is, as I mentioned earlier with Alumni Edge, to keep putting entire new courses into that platform so that people can actually take them as well without actually having to physically come into the class. All right, so these are sort of 3-pronged response without committing to anything.
Our final question.
What about an entrepreneur in residence program alongside your executive in residence, which I believe executive in residence is kind of geared more to consulting finance type students, where entrepreneur in residence.
Good. So that's an idea that we have, and it does exist in some other schools, and we're exploring the possibility of actually having that. We now have some space, and that's why we're exploring it more actively. We have some space actually up there that we call it the Innovation Hub on the second floor of Geffen, and we're going to have some space on that sort of bottom right corner on Kravis. That is going to be another space dedicated into entrepreneurship. That space is also available to people. It's accessible without an ID, so in some sense it will be available to the community as well. So as we're actually building out that space, that idea has come up about thinking of bringing individuals that are entrepreneurs, serial entrepreneurs that are maybe moving into a different stage of their life, or they're thinking about what to do next to sort of be there and nurture it. So that's very much into our thinking.
Amazing. To our alumni, we thank you for your attention and engagement. And Dean Maglaras, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you all, and thank you, Lacie.
For a wonderful conversation, very informative about the future of our school. So just to inform you all, we have lunch now. I think it's in the other building. I've been told there's a tunnel underneath this building if you want to use that. And then there is the Alumni Lounge will start at Kravis Hall right after lunch. Star has some more comments.
Thank you, Mehul. Thank you, Lacie and Costis. If you don't want to get blown away, I do encourage you to go one level down. You'll see what we call the link, and it's a tunnel that will take you to Kravis. This does conclude our academic programming today, so thank you so much for being with us yesterday and today. What's ahead? Lunch, the Alumni Lounge hours, and tonight, the receptions at various locations. This weekend would not have been possible without our many individuals and many teams, so I would like to give a round of applause to our alumni relations staff. There were many, many people that put this Herculean effort together, so I'm grateful for that. Next week, you'll hear from us on the Alumni Edge sign-up that you'll all receive a free membership for, as well as the recordings and the photographs of the session. So thank you so much for attending Reunion 2022. See you next year.